Aloha Synergists, this is Noah East with Holistic Synergistic, and in this video we are looking at the 3 secrets that you need to know if you want to successfully measure your fitness progress. And I've seen people ignore these, and generally they end up going in the direction they do not want to go, or focusing on something that isn't actually important to them. Secret number 1 is what is meaningful to you and why. That's a secret that you have. Somewhere deep down, somewhere in your soul, in your spirit, you are trying to find the most important thing. And every day, because sometimes your idea of that may change. So what is meaningful to you and why? That is what we are looking for, because otherwise we might focus on the entirely wrong thing, or we might find a much faster way to get what we actually care about. Secret number 2, we're choosing and using subjective and objective measurements. One measurement alone is a very dangerous thing, specifically the scale. All you're looking at is the scale. I see that wreck people's progress, wreck people's happiness, just because they're really focused on that one thing. So we're going to dig into the details there. Secret number 3 is with the measurements that you choose, you are being accurate and consistent with them. So things don't go haywire, and you have accurate data, accurate graph plots. That means you can actually track your score, make it a game. There's a lot of motivation from gamifying things, and you need accurate and consistent measurements for that to work. So let's look at secret number 1. What is meaningful to you and why? Often I use this little loopy phrase thing to try to discover a deeper motive, the motive behind the motive. So if I do this thing, then this and this and this, right? So if I lose 10 pounds, then I will be able to snowboard better. If I snowboard better, then I can keep up with my friends. If I can keep up with my friends, then I'll feel like I can compete and enter a snowboard competition. If I enter that snowboard competition and train with the freestyle team, I will feel connected to a community, I will meet new people, and I will improve my skills. If I connect to the community, improve my skills, meet new friends, then I will have warm, fuzzy, wonderful feelings of love and connection. And if I feel warm, fuzzy, lovely feelings of love and connection while improving my athletic skills, then I can see how that would contribute to a better quality of life. If I have a better quality of life, then I can do better work and serve the community in a better way, so on, so on, so on. It's worth spending a lot of time just kind of meditating with your motives. Try to find what's underneath. Try to find what's underneath. Try to find what's even underneath that. And you're trying to get to the core. And you might find that sometimes it's almost like you think you're getting close to the core, and then you see how it actually goes back up to the surface level in a more aligned way. And the more you understand this big matrix of motives, then the more you're able to make progress on them effectively. So every day, seek clarity on what is the most important thing, and every day see the alignment of how your simple daily activities line up with that most important thing. Like I said, it's a big matrix. It's really important, really important. So have fun figuring those ones out and feeling it every day as you're doing your activities, as you take your first breath in the morning, as you cook breakfast, as you do your workout. It all aligns with the most important thing, or it doesn't. If you're binging Netflix, you might be like, man, this is just like not important. So let it sink in and see how your life changes just with that awareness. Secret number 2, like I said, one measurement without context is a dangerous thing. So this is the system that I've developed that seems to work very, very well if you actually do it. You figure it out, it's a little bit of work on the front end, and every kind of reset of a training period, you may want to review this, maybe change your measurements and whatnot. But we want objective measurements, which are physically measurable, somebody else can measure them, and we want subjective measurements, which only you can measure. We want at least one of each. Often, it's nice to have more like 2 or 3 of each, because there might be a lot of things that are important to you. So we're going to look at an example on the next page. Common objective measurements, obviously, like body fat percentage, blood sugar levels, waist to hip ratio, 1 rep or 3 rep max, beep test, agility drills. Maybe you have a certain piece of clothing that doesn't shrink and expand in the dryer, and that's kind of like a good measuring stick. It's an easy girth measurement, basically. You can do that with measuring tape too. Maybe lean mass, which you could measure with like a DEXA scan. Bone density again. Maybe it's how much time it takes you to run or bike 1 mile on flat ground or a trail that you live next to and you can run all the time. Maybe it's a hill sprint, max height jump, like box jump or something. Depends what's important to you. Your joint alignment, you can actually measure the angles at your joints, the mobility in your spine. Where's your default? That's measurable objectively. There's tons and tons of them. These are just a few examples. Subjective measurements. Only you can measure the amount of pain that you feel, for instance, right now or on a regular basis. Only you can kind of get this idea of what's your average energy levels through the day. Are you feeling stoked about life and full of juice, or are you kind of snoozing and tired and just not feeling pumped up? Only you can measure that overall quality of life. Your ability to have fun in activities. This stuff's important, and if you don't pay attention to this stuff, you might be so focused on the objective measurements, and these really important subjective ones, could be going the other direction. Some people get so obsessed about fitness, so obsessed about losing body fat, that they end up being tired. They end up not being able to do the activities that they love to as much because they're so fatigued or something. That's not what we want. Personally, I think I care about the subjective more, because that's your experience of life, the quality of your relationships. Are you feeling like you have a balanced wheel of life that's spinning in the direction that you want it to go? And while that is kind of built on some of these objective realities, the subjective is probably more important in my opinion. The objective just kind of contribute to that and gamify some of these harder to pin down subjective measures. Does that make any sense? You with me here? Picking up what we're putting down? So if you're ready now, you might need to think on this some more. Like you said, find your deeper motives, then come back to this. There's a big document at the end of this where it kind of has a bunch of links to how to measure these effectively, cheaply, accurately, and whatnot. But if you are ready now, you can kind of note down the ones that you care about. 1 to 3 objective, 1 to 3 subjective, and just keep them handy for the next part. Once we have these kind of general measures that we care about, then we clarify our specifics, clarify the milestones that we're really looking for. And so I'm going to use an example for this. Let's say you got somebody, and her big, it's immeasurable purposes. She wants to serve the community in the best way she can while personally growing and challenging herself in a meaningful way. And growing fitter and more joyous than ever, kind of subjective there as well. And the challenging goals that she's looking for is she wants to complete and pass the firefighter academy. And she also wants to fit in her mom's wedding dress for, a wedding coming up because she's engaged. An example, right? So her objective measurements that she chose might be 3 rep max, because that's her max strength that she can test safely. It's 3 rep, 1 rep max is a measure, but obviously 3 rep max is probably a better idea for most of us. So let's say her specified 3 rep max exercises that she's testing for is the amount of weight that she can do with a dumbbell flat bench press, a cable lat pull down, one-handed cable row, and a single leg squat. And those are her exercises that she tests. How heavy can she go with 3 reps? Cool. Beep test, because she needs endurance to pass firefighter academy. They do a beep test. She needs above a certain score. Maybe she's going for 12 or something in that one. And then also the girth measurements. She needs a wedding dress to fit, so she doesn't have to spend $4,000 on another dress or something. So she's trying to fit in that one. And girth measurements are the thing that she's looking for at whatever number that she's for her dimensions. So she's got that figured out. It's specific. It's attainable. She knows when she makes progress, right? Subjective, she wants to feel capable in the face of intense challenges, obviously needed for the firefighter stuff. And that's a sense of like, okay, I'm challenged, but I know I have the strength, endurance, and the cognitive diligence to persist and be able to go through with this, even though it's pretty difficult. And that is trainable and it is noticeable. You can feel that every time, you hop in a cold shower, and initially it's like, you're super nervous and you're like, ah! And then eventually you might just get like, hey, it's a cold shower. Yeah, it's going to feel pretty rough. You just get in, you're staying calm, your heart rate is kind of similar. So you can feel that in your physiology and in your psychology as well, your emotional state, even when you're faced with similar situations, then you'll notice it, right? Another subjective measurement, she wants to feel confident in her body, for and after the wedding. So, obviously there's going to be a bunch of photographers and everything. She doesn't want to be like shy and hiding. She's like, yeah, this is my body and I've been working on it and it's pretty cool and it does a good job. Makes sense. The other subjective measurement, she wants to reduce and possibly even be entirely free from left shoulder pain that's been bothering her and the lack of mobility, so she could measure objectively that, she only gets there before it starts to hurt. But, over time, she might see that change by having more objective mobility as well as the subjective, it doesn't hurt. Makes sense? So there's an example. You might have something similar to this, however specified that you need it to be for it to be useful, fun, and doable for you. Quick little story here to kind of drive home why this is important. I saw this situation in my gym. I'm going to change their names for privacy. But this person I'm going to call Beth, she had the challenging goal of losing 25 to 35 pounds. And so did her friend Eileen, also wanted to lose about 25, 35 pounds. And they're friends, so they were in the gym often together and whatnot, which is great. But Beth chose to do the stationary bike, cardio for about an hour, kind of low to moderate intensity. And she was there pretty often. She was there most days of the week. She was motivated. She also was eating less calories than she previously was. And after about 5 months, she saw, a reasonably significant amount of weight loss, several pounds. I don't know. I didn't get the number from her. Several pounds had come up with it. And she wasn't stronger because she wasn't doing any resistance training. subjectively, the quality of life from what I heard was about the same. She didn't do other activities. She wasn't feeling particularly better. The exercise helped compared to her previous kind of lack of activity, but it wasn't super amazing. She also noticed that when she ate, she gained weight back really fast if she ate a few more calories in her day, in her week. So that was that. Eileen, she also had the same goal, right? But she invested with a coach, which she invested with me. We worked on clarity of what she actually cared about and her life vision, what was important, what she wanted on a deeper level, what was behind the 25 and 35 pounds. So knowing that, all right, okay, so the path we chose was actually doing resistance training 2 to 4 times per week. And then we also did a fair bit of high intensity interval training. And then she did some cardio on her own 2 to 3 times per week. We also encouraged higher protein intake and a lot less junk. So we focused less on actually calories. We didn't really count calories, but we did count protein and tried to avoid the big negatives like inflammatory oils and sugars and all of that. So after 5 months, Beth and Eileen, they started together. After 5 months, Eileen had a little bit slower weight loss actually, but she had way more strength. She had learned a lot more of the principles so that she can take herself to the gym and take her through a great workout that works on what she wants to work on. She experienced quality of life improvements by long shot. Her energy levels have been going up, her focus at work and whatnot. She's feeling a lot better about that, as well as like less physical pain, less tightness. She also eventually lost over 25 pounds and got under her big milestone of being under 200 pounds, which was huge. And that happened relatively quickly and sustainably. And she, because, her extra muscle mass and her strength and her resistance training and whatnot, she could get away with eating a lot more calories on certain days, special events and whatnot without gaining the fat back. And so these 2 stories, I think they help highlight you focusing on what's important versus focusing on just one specific number on the scale, for instance. I pick on the scale a lot because it's something a lot of people care about and measure, and I think it's it just throws people off, I think, a lot of the time. It is important to me too, though, general weight. Like I noticed when I got really heavy, like when I was weighing about 172 pounds, gymnastics started to get quite a bit harder. Even though I was stronger than ever, still having that much more weight, that extra 20 pounds or whatnot from when I was doing gymnastics at 155 pounds, I was like, oh, I don't think I want to put on much more. And so weight is useful, but know what is most important. Nobody cares about the number on the scale, but it might be important for some other deeper reason. Cool. Secret number 3, measuring accurately and consistently. So we want consistency of the method. We want consistency of our factors that go into this, our variables. And I like to say this simply is what you do before you take your measurements. And then consistency of timing. So like a good scientist, we want to minimize our variables. That way we get better data, knowing it's really never going to be perfect. Obviously, we are not in a laboratory. We have variables, but we are thinking about these to try to minimize them. Because if we don't, people can get super weird results and they're like, what? And I'm like, well, you ate a completely different meal, or you were fasting this day and then you pigged out on carbs this day. It's going to be different. So I suggest choosing a training period, generally around 8 weeks if it's your first run through, that you are committed to measuring this thing this way. Because if you change the way that you're measuring every 2 weeks, your data isn't going to be useful. Same thing if you commit to this for 6 months, you might want to change the things that you're measuring because you realize actually this would be better or this would be easier or something down the road. So 8 weeks, though, you can commit to something for 8 weeks, right? So it's the method. Within your method, you're going to be using the same devices. So use the same scale. Make sure if you're using a digital one that the batteries are fresh, because if it has low battery, then it won't give you an accurate number. Or use the same tape measure even. Use the same doctor that does body composition scanning, whatever. Use the same athletic equipment. If you're testing things like how far you can run or jump or something, use the same shoes, same surface, same hockey stick, whatever it is. If it's clothing that you were using as one of your measurement devices, then use the same clothing. Don't put it in the dryer and have your jeans all shrink, because that would change. It wouldn't be accurate. Also use the same techniques, so you can repeat it reliably. And if you have good notes, then you might be able to repeat it even when you're outside of your normal environment. If you're traveling or something, you can still take these measurements in a reasonably similar way. You can note down the temperature of the day and all that. So our pre-measure factors, our variables that we want to make as consistent as possible. I'm aiming for the same nutrition and hydration roughly before we do the thing. We are aiming for the same recovery status. So if we're testing max strength, obviously it's going to be way different if we hit a huge workout just yesterday compared to another week where we hadn't worked out for 3 days. It's going to be different. So make it as similar as possible. We're also aiming for the same climate conditions. You are going to perform differently if it is 60 degrees or 90 degrees or dry or humid. So that is something to keep in mind. And You can't necessarily control that all the time, especially if your thing is outside, but you can maybe adjust. While we say like timing, right? We want to measure at the same time of day, the same week, the same month, whatever. If you're measuring on Fridays and then it's like a sunny, dry day and you're trail running, your mile, recording the time, and then next Friday you go do the same thing, but it's like it's raining and it's full of mud. I mean, maybe you want to wait till Sunday or something in that case. Doesn't mean you just skip it, but or take a note. You're like, this is my time in the mud compared to this is my time dry. And then at least you have something that you can refer back to and see correlations. Think about the consistent graph plots. Does it make sense? Cool. Remember, both subjective and objective measurements are essential to successfully tracking your progress that matters. And remember to ask yourself, what is the most important thing? What is the most important thing, and how do my little daily activities contribute and line up to that most important thing? Cool. Here are our action steps. Number 1, we determine where we were going to keep our data. So I like to keep it in the cloud because I lose books or whatever, use them up, and then I don't want to carry them with me when I'm traveling. So I like to keep it in the cloud. I was using Airtable. I use Notion. Airtable is nice because you can make it like a custom table-y, spreadsheety thing. And so it's great to see data. So number 2, fill out the top end of your goal stack hierarchy and your purpose, all that, because you need that meta purpose to kind of choose the right measurements. And so number 2 and 3, they kind of go back and forth because you want to choose your objective and subjective measurements right now. I said 1 to 3 of each. Keep it easy, keep it doable, something that you can actually do. And it's not like this big old, it doesn't take up your whole day, hopefully, right? And on a schedule that works for you and that you're ready to commit to for at least 8 weeks. And so once you have those objective and subject measurements, you might go back to that goal stack, put in those milestones that you're looking for, put in those input goals of just like every day, I want to intermittent fast until past 10 a.m. or something. You can make that specific. So do those together. Number 4, take your first measurements this week. Don't put it off. You can do it today, but don't rush it and then have your times off. So commit to your schedule. Now, if you notice like, oh, this isn't going to work when week 1, quickly review it, change it in a way that's going to work. Try not to overthink it, but the power of commitment does a lot. Number 5 is the ongoing one of taking accurate measurements on a consistent schedule. For some, that might be every 2 weeks. You might look at the scale, you might take your girth measurements or something, or maybe every month for some other stuff. Blood sugar might be hourly. You're checking blood sugar every hour if that's important to you. While you might do a big fancy like DEXA scan, but maybe that's only annually, and that measures like your bone composition, your lean muscle mass, your body fat percentage. But you have to travel somewhere, you have to pay like at least $80 or something for the scan, and so that might be too inconvenient to do on a regular basis, but very important to do every 6 months or annually. This is going to be different for everybody. Please take yourself through this, and on our coaching calls, obviously, we will be reviewing this and answering questions as well. You can always email support@holisticsynergistic.com too if you have questions at the moment. In the little thing below this video, there is a big fat list where you can dive into some of the specifics of how to measure accurately, for instance, using a tape or using these other methods. So check that out when you have chosen your objective and subjective measurements. Thank you. I look forward to seeing all the amazing things you do, the amazing progress you make, and the amazing lives that you help change by letting other people know about this. That's all for today. See you in the next one.